The way I got into F1 is not, the classical one, but it's nevertheless a super interesting one. But the funny thing is that when I told them, oh, I'm a journalist, so they say, no, you are the diamond guy. In Belgium and in France, they know us very well, and they call us the dream team of the commentator. So, which is the best compliment I can get. Not so many people are really able to make a living out of journalism in the paddock. So once they are inside, they are not easily going to rock the boat. Concerning Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi, of course he was robbed. It's very clear that Toto Wolff is dreaming day and night of Max Verstappen. He wants to get him in the seat. AJ Foyt said recently, he said, I wouldn't cross the street to watch F1 because you know who's going to win. But in IndyCar, every race you have 15 potential winners.
Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the third season of Georgie's Stripping the Dipping podcast. I'm your host, F1 Black. And today we speak to a guy who commentates on Formula 1, IndyCar and Le Mans for a living. Ziv Knoll was in Antwerp, Belgium when I interviewed him just before the Belgian Grand Prix. As he explains, his F1 story is not conventional, including launching one of the most popular French-language F1 websites, driving a Formula 1 car around Spa, selling diamonds to members of the paddock, and striking up a formidable commentary duo with Pierre Van Vliet. I found Ziv to be both a charming character, but also someone that tells it how it is. I don't want to hold you up any longer. Let's dive straight into the episode. Ziv Knoll, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Nice being there with you.
Brilliant to have you. And the first thing we like to ask our guests is, how would you introduce yourself to just an individual person if they were new to you?
Well, that's a challenge, but okay. I'm 63 years old, but I feel like half of that, and I've been always very much interested in car racing as far as I can remember as a child already. And I'm a businessman as well. I'm a consultant in enterprises, but my passion has been driven me to journalism, and since many years now, I write articles, I comment races on TV, and I give my opinion about everything that is going on in F1, in the Le Mans series and in the IndyCar.
Could you tell us about the earliest memories you can recall about sort of what was your first experience watching motorsport and who was around, what drivers and cars you saw?
Yeah, actually, I remember very vividly sitting in my dad's car. I was 8. And on the radio, there was the commentating of the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1969. And at that time, our listeners, they know that Jackie X won just by a fraction of a second in front of Hans Hermann in the Porsche. And Jackie X was in the Ford GT40, the legendary Gulf car. And so I was already listening at the radio for nearly 24 hours, driving my parents completely crazy. So that's my first really vivid memory, and I never stopped doing this. So I was barely 8 years old.
I think that 8 is the magic age because my son is 9 now, but it was when he turned 8, he started watching Formula 1 with me. I don't know if it's something about that age.
Must be something indeed.
Yeah, exactly. So Jackie X was the winner, and of course, he almost won the Formula 1 World Championship, I think the year or so after, in the year that Clay and
Yes,
Jochen
actually
wins.
twice in a row. In 1969, he was second in the World Championship behind Jackie Stewart, but quite far away in points. But in 1970, as you say, indeed, he was second to the regretted Jochen Rindt. And yes, at that time I was a kid, and he was really my hero. We have and he was Belgian, so like me, so that was perfect. So we had two great champions at that time. We had Jackie X and Eddy Merckx for the ones who follow cycling.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, maybe Belgium is overproduced in terms of people that are fast on wheels because, I don't know if you claim him, but Max Verstappen, of course, was born in Belgium. So, you're not doing too badly.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Mark. Not only this, Max Verstappen is born in Belgium, raised in Belgium. His mom is Belgian. But if you think about it, Lando Norris has a Belgian mom and Lance Stroll as well. So Belgium is well represented in Formula One for the moment through the moms.
Yeah, right. Something about if you want a child that's going to be great at motor racing, maybe you should marry a Belgian woman. Who knows?
Yeah,
Yes.
indeed. Well, look, Belgium has a very rich history in car racing. Since the early days, since the time when the Belgian cars were yellow and the Italian cars were red, as you remember, and the British cars were green.
Absolutely, and we still use that in the kind of when we think about Jaguar, Aston Martin. Those cars in my head are still in British racing green, much like Ferraris are in red. So it's still caught on.
Absolutely.
So you talked about being a businessman, and I'm always interested about kind of the full package of people because people in motorsport, they come from in all shapes and sizes and from all backgrounds. So I know that your degree was in accounting and business management. So can you tell us how you then sort of made that transition into, the passion project that it is Formula One or motorsport in your life, and whether that background has helped you, in motorsport?
Yes, my parkour was quite different than other people because I studied in accountancy for 3 years, and then I became a businessman in the diamond trade. Actually, I'm a diamond trader, and as I came from a very modest background, car racing was something that I was following through the magazines, but that was not really achievable for me to become a race driver or let alone travel all around the world following the races. But then, thanks to that, my business, I started making money. And then later, quite late, after my 40s, I started racing myself. First in the Fun Cup, pretty modestly, but then together with a partner, we bought a Radical racing car. And now we already have our fifth Radical with a V8 engine. And through my racing all through Europe, I met journalists, and I told them that actually I have quite a great knowledge about the motorsport history. That I have a fantastic memory for remembering everything that happened since even the 1950s, and so I met a very famous journalist called Pierre Van Vliet that used to comment races on the French TV, and he told me that we had an idea one evening that we drank a glass or two, and we said, oh, why don't we create a website? And we did create f1i.com, which was the number one website in French covering the F1. And this way I got into the paddock, and I went to many Grand Prix, and I decided not to run after the news like most of the journalists, but really do a work like the journalists used to do in the 60s. I was going around the circuit, watching the cars, going around, making my own opinion, telling the spectators, what it was to be on a racetrack, and telling them about all the people that I met, and so it was very, very successful because together with Pierre Van Vliet that told me, "Oh, Ziv, you have talent for this business." We did weekly web TV programs that were called, the debriefings of Pierre and Ziv, and it was very much followed. It has been seen hundreds of thousands of times, or maybe millions of times. So this way, I got to be known a little bit in the F1 paddock, but the funny thing is that when I told them, "Oh, I'm a journalist," so they said, "No, you are the diamond guy," and so a lot of people I got to know all the drivers and the managers and the people that decide things in F1, and I got I got a lot of information that was publishable right away or not publishable. You know what is off and on in journalism, but also I made a bridge with my business, and everybody now or then needs a ring for a wife, for a girlfriend, for a mistress. So I was also in the thick of things for these kind of things, and it permitted me also to get into the private life of all these people, because then you get to know the wives and the children, and you get invited home. So that was a very, very nice way of getting into the F1, something that I have dreamed of all my life. So you see, the way I got into F1 is not, the classical one, but it's nevertheless a super interesting one.
In your profession, you must need the skill of networking, the skill of understanding people, gaining trust, maintaining that trust. I hear that the paddock is quite a interesting culture.
Yeah, actually, the paddock felt to me very similar to my trade, because it's a small community, and the people who really have the power are not the ones, many times not the ones that come on TV. So it was very interesting for me to see what is going behind the scene, and we will come later to the fact that I'm writing now about the human side of racing, because as you mentioned, for me, I'm a person of contact, and the most important thing for me is the human aspect of business, and people are very much interesting for me, their stories. And to reach F1, you need to sacrifice a lot. You need to have a lot of skill, and everyone's story was interesting for me, going from the mechanics to the F1 drivers, to their managers, to their physio, and other journalists that I admired very much, and that I got to know, and it was so nice. At a certain moment, I was treated like they're in the press room as their equal. So for me, it was very much enjoyable.
I was going to ask you about, once you're in the paddock and people, you have a bit of a relationship. Has it changed the way that you experience, motorsport or Formula One as you watch it, because you know more about what's going through people's minds in the background?
Yes, absolutely. When you comment a race, most of the commentators, they make a mistake. They just tell statistics, and this one has won 7 Grand Prix and I led so many laps. But that's fine to mention once in a while. But but what the people want to hear is what is going on the track, and why it is going on, because everybody can see on TV what is going on. So they need something, a comment that is going more in depth, and also they'd like to know what is going behind the scenes. So whenever there are some negotiations for transfers, of course, people love to know what is cooking, but also the driving side of things. And luckily, I have quite a lot of miles driving all kind of tracks all around Europe, and I even had a chance to drive a Formula One car in Spa. So that permits me to have a better understanding, a better view than most of the established journalists that are running around in the paddock.
Oh, I was going to ask you about commentary, but let's pause for a second. You drove a Formula One car around Spa. What was that like? How could you compare it to anything, or is it just indescribable?
First of all, yeah, the car was a wonderful car. I had a chance. I was invited by a friend that owned the car to drive the 1988 Benetton B188 that Thierry Boutsen and Alessandro Nannini drove in 1988, and they were best of the rest behind. You remember the McLarens, Hondas of Senna and Prost. So it was a fantastic car designed by Rory Byrne, and I had a chance to drive it. So actually, that was the highlight of my existence in some sense, because I've been dreaming of it for all my life. And luckily, I had quite a lot of miles with very fast cars on Spa, because otherwise it would have been nearly impossible to master, because you might remember that these cars didn't have any driving aid and a manual gearbox, etc. So it was awesome. I couldn't believe my luck when I drove out of the pits without stalling, which was also a performance, I guess. And the problem with these kind of cars is that you need to drive them fast in order to warm up the tires, in order to get some grip. But it's very performance, so whenever you make a mistake, it could be a very costly mistake. So when you drive too slow, you have absolutely no grip, and when you drive fast, you don't have enough experience. But nevertheless, it went great. Although I have to tell you, I spun the car in the bus stop chicane because I put on the gas a little too early, and the tires were not warm enough. So I spun it, and but I didn't touch anything. So that was one more thing to experience, is spinning a Formula One car in front of everybody. Great.
We can pretend you were doing a donut, right? That was just a donut.
Yeah, we could, but I stalled. So, so
Oh dear.
that was great. That was awesome.
It sounds awesome, and everything you say is really interesting. When I asked you the question, I was thinking about Richard Hammond, who was one of the Top Gear presenters, and he had the opportunity to drive a Renault Formula One car, which ironically is the same company just many years later. And he stalled many, many times trying to leave the pits. And as you say, he could not drive enough, hard enough to get the heat or keep the heat in the tires. So, yeah, you must have done a great job. And driving around Spa, I mean, it's an incredible track. Did you manage to sort of go full throttle, coming up to the bus stop chicane? Were you braking hard? How did it feel?
Yeah, exactly. That was something. Actually, I went full throttle in the double blanchiment, but I was not worried about the speed. I don't know how much, how fast I was going, but I was, full throttle in sixth gear. But I was just worried not to miss my braking, because I said, oh my God, I don't want to come back in the pits and tell my friend that I broke his toy, his very expensive toy. So in Blanchimont, putting my foot down, I was just worried about the braking point at the bus stop. So I braked like 50 meters before what I'm used to do with my own radical racer.
It's like driving a museum piece. You don't want to damage. Can you imagine damaging the Mona Lisa or something? You would.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. But it went well, and my teammate, that he was the owner of the car, and he's my teammate in radical racing. He was such a cool guy. He just told me, enjoy your ride, man. That's your dream. So I'm very happy to give you to fulfill your dream. So I will always be thankful for that.
I talked about trust earlier. I mean, that's big trust. So you must have a great team and a great relationship. So that's brilliant.
Yes. Yeah, I do, and it's very rare, because we own cars together since many years, and when somebody spins, one of us spins and breaks something, we always share the expense. And we sometimes argue about that, because I say once I broke the wing, and I told him, no, it's my fault, I'm gonna pay. And so it's the contrary of most of the people. He just stood on paying half of it, as we always do. So I really have a great teammate indeed.
Amazing. So we might talk about teammates later. We play a little game, but you were talking about commentary, and you were saying the kind of common mistake is to give lots of statistics and sort of dry facts rather than explaining why and the motives and what's going on behind the scenes. So, Do you have any commentating idols? You know, I would say in my childhood, Murray Walker was, you know, the emotion and passion that he could bring really got me transfixed in Formula One. But do you have any commentators that you would say, these are the guys that when I'm in the booth, I would love to emulate?
The thing is about Murray Walker, and I met him, he was fantastic in transmitting, as you say, the passion, but he was making a lot of factual mistakes. It was even funny to hear. And when I met him in 2006, I believe, in Hockenheim, it was so fun because every 5 minutes I was telling him, Murray, it's not correct what you just said. It's a mistake. It was not this, it was not that. And he said, oh, you're right. Oh, my goodness, you're right. So let's say a combination of Murray Walker and Martin Brundle will be perfect because Murray had the enthusiasm and Martin has this dry knowledge and also the experience of having been there, done that. So I'm enjoying both of them. And as a commentator, I try to do the same thing. And I believe that we are doing a good job with Pierre because Pierre Van Vliet is very knowledgeable. He's a walking encyclopedia like me. But both of us try to have a very relaxed mood, and we are teasing each other. We are making small jokes. But what we say about the race and what we see, I think it's very serious, but in a very relaxed way. And the people in Belgium and in France, they know us very well, and they call us the dream team of the commentator. So, which is the best compliment I can get.
Sounds like you're in lots of good teams. And yeah, the Murray Walker, Martin Brundle commentary team, which lasted probably not very long, maybe 2 years before Murray, or 3 years before Murray had to retire, was very good.
I love James Hunt as well at the time. He was great. Sometimes he was very wrong, but at least he was not politically correct. And as a journalist, you need that a little bit because nowadays everything is so much formatted, and nobody dares telling that this guy or this guy is not performing well, or this guy doesn't behave well on the track or off the track, because people want to keep their networking in the paddock. But that was my advantage all the time that I was in the Formula One paddock, that I was completely free and independent. And many times I got, I remember I was criticizing Grosjean for his reckless driving, his arrogant way of doing, or I was telling that Fiat was better than Jean-Éric Vergne, Toro Rosso, etc. And they were coming to me and say, Ziv, please be nice to me sometimes. So I say, look, I'm very honest to the people who listen to me, and when you perform well, I'm gonna be the first one to say so. But when you make a mistake, I will also point at. So they had to deal with me, not being severe for the sake of it, but for just telling the truth.
I'll admit that I am a big fan of Lewis Hamilton, and obviously, you know where I'm going to go with this. Abu Dhabi 2021. Lots of people are saying, "Oh, it's a long time ago. Please get over it." But one of the things that really shocked me at the time was maybe it was the British or the World Feed. They have a broadcast relationship directly with Formula One, and they were obviously celebrating the Verstappen win. I didn't feel that there was as much honesty or openness about how crazy the last lap was and how the rules had, in the moment, no one really said that the rules have been changed in the last lap. Do you feel in the paddock that there is a pressure to conform or a pressure to toe the line or be politically correct?
Yes, I believe so because there is a lot at stake, and not so many people are really able to make a living out of journalism in the paddock. So once they are inside, they are not easily going to rock the boat. Because, for instance, do you hear anybody criticizing openly the bad performance of Lance Stroll? No, you won't hear that because Lawrence Stroll is very powerful and you want to be accepted in the Aston Martin facility, etc. So, concerning Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi, of course he was robbed. And the whole paddock actually cheered on Verstappen, because it is true that when you look at the whole championship, Verstappen deserved the title, but on Abu Dhabi, it's clear that Lewis was robbed, but it didn't bother many people because he already had 7 titles, and people were tired of the domination. But as a sportsman, and I can only say that that it was a disgrace, and the rules were bended. Maybe there was no conspiracy, but it was a mistake for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the word conspiracy is tricky to prove. I don't think anyone will ever prove it. And I understand that Michael Massey has signed a non-disclosure agreement, or at least that's what other journalists tell me. Maybe it's not true. So maybe we'll never know. But it is. I do think that there was probably a concern in Formula One that at the time Raikkonen was retiring, Vettel was a year away from retiring, Alonso was 40, and Hamilton would have been the only world champion in the sport. And I remember watching Formula One, sadly, after the death of Ayrton Senna, and there were no world champions in the sport. And very quickly you can lose your big names. So maybe there was a kind of view that it was good to have a new hero, that wasn't a conspiracy, but perhaps self-interest.
Yes, it's possible. There was a whole dynamic around Verstappen, and he's got his 3 titles already, and most probably a 4th one. So it's game, set, and match, and people are waiting to see Hamilton in red at Ferrari, and hope that he's going to win a couple of races. It's going to be already big business and big story for the F1.
Even the British Grand Prix and Lewis Hamilton getting to the top step of the podium seemed to spike all of the ratings. Not because Lewis Hamilton, well, I mean, he is a huge name globally, but it's the story of redemption and of competition, and everyone wants to see that competition. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Also because he hasn't won since 2021, and George Russell is really doing a good job by being slightly better than him even. So and then you have to acknowledge the talent of George Russell. You British people are really lucky to have upcoming talents like Russell and Norris coming up now. But in fact, it's true that Lewis winning a couple of weeks ago in Silverstone was very, very popular, and a real redemption, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was funny when you said about Jean-Eric Verne, and perhaps you didn't say it was him that came to speak to you and say, please be nicer to me. But I chuckled when you said, well, when you perform well, I'll be the first person to say it. And there's a kind of double compliment or a backhanded insult there, which I found hilarious. But my question to you, because I'm presuming you speak at least 3 languages. You're one of those very talented European people that we envy here in the UK. Does good commentary, is it different in French and English? Do you need to adapt?
I don't need much adaptation to tell you the truth, but I've been commentating in French most of the time, but I'd love to do it in English as well. And I guess my French accent could be an asset because it could be popular. And but for me, no, motor racing is mostly an English-speaking sport, so one has to be fluent in many languages. And we Belgians, we are a small country, and to thrive, we need to speak quite a lot of languages. And I'm lucky enough to be talented in languages. Yeah, I learn quite quickly. So, but still, as you can hear, it's far from perfect. My English is far from perfect.
No, I love it. It has character, and I could see that you have been commentating on IndyCar for, it looks like 5 years, or maybe even longer.
Absolutely.
And my view, because I used to watch, I guess it was called Champ Car in the late 90s, and it was
yes
after
Champ Car, and then Kart, and then and then IndyCar now.
Exactly.
Indeed.
And it was a time back then. It was a time when I think Nigel Mansell had just come, done some time in IndyCar, and then we had European drivers. We had, Zanardi, and then obviously Montoya from Colombia. It felt like competitive and a really interesting series. And to me, IndyCar feels like it's coming back to that. You've got Formula 2 champions. You've got drivers from all over the world. What's your experience commentating on IndyCar, and what would you say comparing it to Formula 1? Do you find yourself enjoying one more than the other?
Actually, it's a fantastic series. I'm enjoying every time I go into the studio and there is a new race. And AJ Foyt said recently, he said, I wouldn't cross the street to watch F1 because you know who's going to win. But in IndyCar, every race we have 15 potential winners. So first of all, it's very exciting. Second of all, the drivers need to be very talented because you have 3 different kind of circuits. You have the ovals. Actually, you have 4: the ovals, the super speedways, the very fast one. You have the short ovals. You have the road courses, and you have the street courses. So in order to win a championship like that, you need to be very versatile and a very good driver. On top of that, the paddock is very accessible to everybody. It's a real joy, and it's very much comparable to racing in Europe in the 70s and in the 80s, which is the golden period that we all are very nostalgic of. So the races are really good. The level of the drivers is really wonderful, and there is no limitation. When a team has a budget for 3, 4, 5 cars, they can field 3, 4, 5 cars. And when the youngsters that are coming up, they get a chance to show their talent in IndyCar, which is very much what is the problem in F1 is that you have only 20 seats, but only 1 or 2 are free for up and coming drivers every year. So it's a very difficult thing to break through. But in the IndyCar, you really get a chance, and they don't limit the field to 20 cars. This season, every race we have 27 cars, and at Indy, of course, as you know, we have 33 cars. And then, of course, when you talk about commentating a race, there is nothing better than commentating the Indy 500, which we do together with Pierre live on a Belgian channel, and also, it's also broadcasted in France, and it's wonderful because we have 4 hours online, on air they call it, and it's a fantastic race, and it's a journalistic performance to comment it for 4 hours live, and I do it with such a joy, and the ones that win in the 500, they write history with a big H, which is wonderful.
Look at Marcus Ericsson, who won the Indy 500 2 or 3 years ago, and for him, spending many years at Sauber or whatever it was calling itself, and struggling and being accused of being a pay driver, it was a huge moment for him to win that.
Absolutely, yeah. And he won deservedly, and the year after he finished second and should have won. Yeah. So it shows that competent drivers hone their skills, because you need to learn how to perform at Indianapolis. But once you do, you have a chance. And he was very well backed when he was at Chip Ganassi Racing. Now he's with Andretti Global, and finally he's considered not as a paid driver anymore, but he's getting very well paid, very well for Marcus Ericsson. But okay, he's not the best driver in the world, we know that, but he has a chance to make himself a very nice career.
Actually, one of the things that brought me back to IndyCar was just the familiar names. It was around when Romain Grosjean had his huge accident in Bahrain, and then he appears in IndyCar, and he was quite popular for the first half a season or a season because he had a big name, and it was kind of interesting. He's since had, let's say, a few incidents, and some of that's been televised, which has been, for me, very entertaining.
Romain Grosjean is a fast racing driver. On one lap, he's really fast and he's capable of performances, and we saw it a couple of weeks ago in Laguna Seca. He finished fourth. The problem with Romain Grosjean is his arrogancy in life, but also in his driving. So he's talented, yes, indeed, but he came into IndyCar with Dale Coyne Racing, and it was a small team, and he became very popular because he can speak English pretty well with his French accent. The Americans love it. But sooner or later, he ran into trouble because he had quite an arrogant driving style, and he made contact with all kind of really good drivers, with Colton Herta, with Will Power, name it, with nearly everybody in the field. And the Americans started not to appreciate him and to drive aggressively towards him as well. And the fact is, people say, yeah, the level of IndyCar is not that great, but actually they are wrong, because Romain Grosjean had 10 podiums in F1, but he still hasn't won one race in IndyCar. So it's not that easy even for the F1 stars to thrive in IndyCar. And you need to be the full package. And Grosjean, yes, a fast driver, but he has a lot of defaults due to his, a little bit strange character, to say the least.
Part of me thinks that, motor racing drivers, let's look at the life story. Your family puts in a lot of money and a lot of focus into you as an individual athlete from a very young age every weekend. So there will be a tendency, I would guess, for the most successful drivers to be perhaps the most arrogant. Obviously, lots of them prove us wrong. And when they're winning, I'm sure they're very nice people. But often when the chips are down, that personality reveals itself. So yeah, I mean, I find it entertaining so long as it's safe and not dangerous for the other drivers. For me, it adds to the flavor of IndyCar.
Absolutely, because you have strong characters, and you see now these young guys, Santino Ferrucci, that had a bad reputation in Formula 2 and came over back home in America, and he drives for AJ Foyt with the number 14, and he's super fast on the speedways, and he's feisty. So people love that, and we want to see that. We want to see hard racing, but it has to be fair. And we are really enjoying commenting the IndyCar. I've been twice to the Indy 500 as a spectator, because I'm a very good friend of Simon Pagenaud. So I was lucky enough to be on the front row at the Indy 500 before the start, with 350,000 people in the grandstand, and being there in the middle of the front row with my great friend Simon, that was absolutely magical.
Sounds like a great relationship. And why do I have the feeling that you might have sold him or his partner some jewelry or some diamonds? Who knows? I mean,
yes, indeed.
We won't talk business on the air.
And I got to be a little bit discreet as well.
Of course. Sorry. Well, there we go. So let's talk in a minute about your side, human side of racing. But before we do, I think one of the most human elements in Formula One that we can all relate to is your employment. As a driver, everything comes to an end at some point. All careers have their beginning, middle, and end. So we heard at the beginning of the season that Lewis Hamilton will go to Ferrari, and that's left a vacancy at Mercedes. Similarly, on the side of the pond we've just been talking about, so in IndyCar, we just heard, I think it was last week at time of recording, that Alexander Rossi's contract will not be renewed at McLaren. So these, for me, are quite big moves. Alexander Rossi's already been replaced. Lewis Hamilton has not. So question to you, who do you think will get the Mercedes seat? And where do you think Alexander Rossi will go in IndyCar?
It's very clear that Toto Wolff is dreaming day and night of Max Verstappen. He wants to get him in the seat next to George Russell, and that's why he's waiting, because of course he thinks he found another Max Verstappen in Kimi Antonelli. So first of all, he doesn't want to miss a chance of another Verstappen, and it's a question of ego. He wants to put a 17-year-old in the F1 like Helmut Marko did before. But on the other hand, he's dreaming day and night of Max Verstappen. And so we know the turmoil, what's going on at Red Bull Racing, and nobody's sure if Max wants to continue there. So that's a little bit of the waiting game. If Max is not coming right away, then Kimi Antonelli will be in the car, because even James Allison said they have tried him and he's awesome in the rain and he's very good and he was as fast on the long runs as George Russell. So I think they're going to try that. But on the other hand, and the fact is that they told Carlos Sainz that there's no room for him. So that's the plan. Plan A, Max Verstappen doesn't go. Kimi Antonelli, they take a huge gamble, but never mind. It could be a winning gamble. The kid looks like, Ayrton Senna a little bit, and reminds us of Senna. I would like to see him perform better in F2 before going to F1, but everybody seems to be sure that he's the real deal. So I'd love to see it. We saw him winning in the rain in Silverstone. So that's great. Now, for Alex Rossi, look, he's been 2 years at McLaren in IndyCar. He has not won a race. And although he's an Indy 500 winner, that's a little bit of a disappointment. And I believe Zach Brown wanted to shuffle a little bit the cards. He's got a nice team now because he's got Lundgaard and Nolan Siegel for the long run. And I believe that Alex Rossi will go to the new Prema team. Who they need somebody with his experience, with his track record, and they're going to take most probably Alex Rossi and maybe a younger driver for their first seasons in IndyCar.
Yeah, we've heard that rumor about Prema. It's for me, the McLaren IndyCar team seems to have a track record of having about 7 drivers per season on contract, and the odd court case to go with it. They of course had Théo Pourchaire, who unfortunately had a few races with him, looked okay, and then lost out to Nolan Siegel. Do you? I mean, on that, before we talk about the Mercedes seat, sorry, do you have any inside knowledge on what happened with Théo Pourchaire?
Actually, not much happened with Théo Pourchaire. Théo Pourchaire was there on a race by race basis, and he did okay. But I believe they would have loved to see him, more, closer even to Pato Ward, the leader. But they didn't blame him from anything. The thing is that Nolan Siegel is a young American that has a huge potential, but that has also a very huge backing, it seems. His dad is a very wealthy person, and Zach Brown saw a combination of qualities, let's say, that he couldn't resist and make a long-term deal with a guy like Nolan Siegel. And the problem is for Pourchaire is that he's good, he's competent, but he's not good enough to be touted as one of the world champions of the future. So he needs to find a budget, and that's a little bit of a problem for him. He has no access to the kind of budget that an IndyCar team like Dale Coyne Racing or another of the smaller teams would need. So it's a little bit problematic. And secondly, he's a little bit of a sober, reserved driver, but they don't have such a motivation either to put him in a car, neither to spend money on him to put him in IndyCar. So that's a little bit of a shame that a Formula 2 champion doesn't find a drive. But I would say the same of Felipe Drugovich, the Brazilian, who walked the championship 2 years ago and was really dominant, like we have rarely seen. And it's a shame that he doesn't get to drive in Formula 1. and he's only 22 years old.
Yeah, it is a real shame, and you spoke a bit about the number of cars. There's a fixed number, 20 seats in Formula One, and clearly it's never enough to accommodate the Formula 2 champion and other drivers emerging, and in a way, IndyCar has benefited significantly from that. But I wonder if these things are all linked, because clearly Sainz has been sitting there biding his time, not with not amazing options. Maybe Audi wanted him, or Sauber as they're called now. I've heard a rumor that maybe he will get the nod and get the seat at Mercedes instead of Kimi Antonelli if he his Formula 2 season has been okay with that win, but hasn't been outstanding. Do you think there's any truth to that rumor, or do you think it's very unlikely that the Sainz will swap into that Mercedes seat?
For the moment, I don't think so. I would rather think that Sainz has an outside chance at Red Bull, because if they feel that that Max is going to leave, they will need a leader, and we have to say that Sainz has performed really, really well at Ferrari, even much better than expected. Everybody thought that he would be destroyed by Leclerc, but it was not the case. And Sainz, the wins that he had were outstanding, and certainly after his surgery. So Sainz deserves a top drive, and he used to be a Red Bull driver. We remember that. So in the back of the mind of Red Bull, Sainz could be an outside option, and that's why he doesn't, for the moment, take the Williams drive or say okay to Audi, which would be great financially because he would get the mega bucks, but he would have to buy this time, because we all know that competitiveness will not come within 1 or 2 years. So Sainz has no time to waste. He needs a competitive drive, and now it's the waiting game to see what is Max going to do, what is Red Bull going to do with Perez, what is the future of Ricciardo if he has one, and we might have big surprises, because after the summer break, Perez should be out of a drive, and they might try Ricciardo at Red Bull, but only for the end of the season, and then get rid of Ricciardo as well, and put two youngsters at former AlphaTauri, or now they call it Racing Bulls, and have Max and Sainz, or Sainz and Lawson at Red Bull. So all the permutations for the moment are still open. It's really and it's nerve-wracking for the other drivers that are waiting to see what is Sainz going to decide. But it's not in his hands even. It's in the hands of Max altogether.
If you're Valtteri Bottas or Esteban Ocon, or you're definitely in the water, and you can feel the current dragging you in a particular direction, and you hope it takes you there quickly. But this is a great moment to ask you a little more about a human side of racing, because we've just spoken about all of those different permutations. Can you tell us about your website, what it's about, what you're trying to achieve with it?
Yes, well, I told you about the website that I started with Pierre Van Vliet, and we used to have 1 million views per day, and it was super successful. And so we had a chance to sell it to a big press group called Reworld Media in France. So we made a nice exit. But I wanted all my life, actually, I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to speak about the also ran, and I came to the idea, like, it was very simple. I said, okay, not everybody is Lewis Hamilton, but everybody has an interesting story to tell. And as you understand already, I'm very much interested in the human side of things. And so I started in 2019. I said, all right, I want the adventure to continue. I want to share the passion. And I write every day an article in French and in English, and it spans from the 1930s until now. I write stories not only about F1, because nowadays it seems like only F1 exists for the people, but actually we have such a fantastic sport where you have the endurance races and Le Mans, of course, the highlight, the biggest race in the world. You have the big races like the Mille Miglia, the Targa Florio, you have the Indycar, you have the NASCAR, you have so many things to say. So I tell you, don't have any problem to change years or series every day on my website. I'm enjoying very much writing every day about all the stories that I think are not enough told, because most of the websites are running after the news and are basically writing the same thing, everybody. And I believe the human side of racing is pretty unique, and the system of the filters that you have discovered permits you to find everything very easily. If you type a year, you can see all the articles that I wrote about that particular year or that particular driver or this particular team or personality. And also what I do is that through my network, I send pictures to famous people that I call my star contributors, and I ask them to tell me the story of that picture. And then, of course, I rewrite it, because most of them are not so fluent in writing. But I believe, and I enjoy doing it, and I believe I share the passion, because I have about 20,000 people all over the world following me.
I could hear the passion in your voice, and the website is fantastic. And I did love the star contributors. I love the article you've got up here right now, Lifetime Combat, which is a picture of Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. They must be, 15 or something? It just...
Exactly. I love that picture. And indeed, whenever I find a picture that I haven't seen anywhere, or it doesn't have to be a perfect picture, but it has to be human, it has to be interesting in many ways and unseen, then by most of the media, then I decide to keep it and one day write an article, and I have hundreds of pictures, interesting pictures that are ready for the next story. Yes, and if you read my articles the last few days, that there were quite a lot of stories that most other people don't really know, and therefore I think it makes my website very interesting.
No, it absolutely does. I would strongly encourage, if you're listening still to the episode, humansideofracing.com. We talked about the Mona Lisa earlier. I actually think there is something artistic about all of these pictures, all of these stories, all of these articles from, as you say, cross motorsport, not just Formula One, and not just talking about 2024. In fact, talking about the entire history. It's great content. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to hear it. It's very flattering, and I'm very, very happy to have this nice conversation with you guys. It's been a wonderful hour that flew by.
Yes.
So
what happened?
What happened?
I don't know.
I also have no idea. I was like, wait, what the hell happened?
So it just disappeared for me, but I don't know if I left or if he's not here.
It disappeared for me as well.
Damn it. I mean, we got most of the episode. I didn't do pineapple on pizza, and I don't want to be rude. I want to kind of, I don't want him to think that was the end. Oh dear. He's such a good guy.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, hopefully, because I know basically I could tell that we have our hour is finished, but I wanted to ask him the pineapple question.
He will be coming. He will be coming. Hopefully, I'm hoping.
Yeah, but if not, it's okay.
Yeah. I have no idea what happened suddenly.
We could send him a picture of a pineapple for his website and say, no, seriously, we could say, write about it.
Yeah.
Star authors, yeah. Oh dear. Gosh, well, no, what a fascinating guy. He's living an incredible dream. I was going to ask him, what advice would he have for people that are as passionate as him about motorsport?
I
They
sent
do.
him the link, and he said that he tried but can't. Then I told him try the second link.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the link, I don't know what link I've just clicked, but you sent a new one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello,
Oh,
hello.
he's it.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Oh, it
Something
has cut
happened
off.
there.
Yeah. So it doesn't work on my I mean I couldn't connect again on my laptop, but I got you back on my telephone.
Okay. Well, I think we only need 1 more minute to sort of wrap up, but it's been so fascinating, Ziv. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. You also, because I can feel that you know your stuff, and you are very professional in your approach. Thanks a lot.
Oh, you're going to give me a big ego, so don't say nice things to me. Thank you very much.
It's like by me flattery works.
Yeah, exactly. No, well, the only thing I was going to ask you, 2 things at the end, which one of them is, where can people follow you? Is it on X? Is it on LinkedIn? What's the best place for people to follow you?
But first of all, I would advise people to go on the website, like you said, and
Yes.
www.humanside-of-racing.com, and then you can choose reading in English or in French. Every day a new article. Otherwise, follow me on LinkedIn, and I post the articles on LinkedIn also every day. So and on Facebook. So you have the choice, and I'll be very happy if more people follow me, of course.
No, that's superb. And this is going to sound like a really strange question, but we ask this of all of our guests. And it's about pizza, which I hope, we've not met anyone yet that doesn't like pizza. So I can assume, Ziv, that you eat the pizza occasionally.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is a divisive question. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I would say the following thing. I was in Naples, and in a pizzeria they were selling pizza with pineapple, but they put it one pizza. They say, okay, the price is €100. So that's that's how bad it is for the Italians. It's a sin. They would, it's a sin to eat pineapple on a pizza. So yeah, I would choose something else. Let's say, although I have to admit, it doesn't taste that bad, but it's not done.
No. So it's a sin. They charge you. Essentially, they're taxing you for your choice. Well, if you really want it, it's €100.
Yeah.
Yes.
I felt that was very funny, and instead of forbidding it or cursing you, they say, okay, you want it, it's €100.
I mean, that is the perfect way to end the episode, because not only have you given us a really colourful story, and we can imagine being in Naples, but also you've kind of looked at the human incentives underneath it, and no, it's brilliant. So, Ziv, thank you so much for joining us on this episode, guys. If you've reached the end of the episode, then you know what to do. Give us a like, a thumbs up, a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to us. Please also come and find us at Strip the Dip on all your good social media platforms. We want feedback. We also just want to engage and talk about the sport that we love. And we also want to hear your guest suggestions. But until next time, I've been your host, F1 Blag. Good night. Thank you.